Hi, this is Christine Chewy, and I'm a kindergarten teacher in the Park Hill School District. I am also a member of the science curriculum writing team for my district, and we recently went through the process of adopting a new curriculum and then writing our own curriculum documents. Um, so, the following presentation is from a professional development that I facilitated over STEM Scopes earlier this school year, towards the end of September. This professional development was given at a time when teachers had about a month to get into the resource and use it with their students at the very beginning of the school year. And so that's where we are, and I'll go ahead and start this presentation and talk about how when I was talking with staff, we started with a Pear Deck. And basically, Pear Deck is an online resource that you can use with a presentation format where you can ask teachers questions where they can um, sign in and give their feedback right there from their own device. And you're getting um, real time input from your audience. And so I was able to, here's our first question: how comfortable are you with the 5E framework? And here they are: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And so my teachers were able to actually um, chime in and give their feedback right from their device. And it would show up on my presentation so that we could kind of just gauge the classroom or gauge the audience. I'm sorry, not really a classroom. But we went on to just ask, what do you hear students saying? And they could go ahead and write in their answers, draw pictures of what your students are learning in science right now, give your, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with STEM scopes at this point? And so, really, the whole purpose of these questions were to just gauge gauge the audience and see how they were feeling and where I could really support them within my presentation for the day. And so moving back to the presentation, I started out with basically just bringing everybody back and getting them up to date with lots of different updates from STEM Scopes themselves. And so accessibility settings for ways that you could view the content from your classroom, from your smartboard, or from your tablets and laptops. That there were now um, caption options for your videos, and even storyline segment activities that matched up to our scopes that we were teaching. And so just some new things that were happening with the resource, pulling them back in to talk about one of the very important resources is the master tool list. And so this would be kind of a part of a resource that um, if you are doing something new that you had never done before, this might be part of the resource that you overlook. And so I was bringing the staff in to say, hey, this master materials list is here. This is where you find it. And the purpose of this is so that you can see what resources STEM Scopes has sent you. But then there's also a master list of things that you're going to need to find or buy on your own, and also master list of like different books that go with what you're going to be teaching and where you can find those. You might have them in your own library. You might need to go out and find them from your public library. So moving on, this would be what I would say was the meat of the whole professional development. So where in the beginning we were just getting updates and just gauging interest, now we're talking about science notebooking. Science notebooking is by far not a new concept, but it's a big thing that we are focusing on in Park Hill this school year. And so this looks very, very different from a kindergarten level classroom all the way up to a fifth grade classroom. And this is, although um, it's not a new concept, it's new for some people. And so this was the beginning of professional development for staff, I would say, on notebooking. And since I've done a couple more professional developments on this specific topic, but it's just what are your goals? what the goals are to give your students a place to show what they're learning and build on that learning, to teach them how to replicate the work of scientists and to connect their reading and writing by, with science by showing what they know with pictures and words and labels and things like that. Um, we I presented on things to look for, and I showed them how in your science notebooking you can use all different kinds of tools, from um, charts and vocabulary, illustrations, the actual data and diagrams, and the ways that you can connect that to the work of famous scientists and how they used to or still do uh, jot down their thinking and keep track of the observations that they're making when they are doing something. The evidence that the students are using these, and so that they're folded and they're wrinkled up and pages are torn, and that is proof that your kids are using them all the time, and that pages might be falling out and that that's okay. And I think that I'll get to it more at the end, but this is one of the realizations that I found just in working with staff over time, is that sometimes they just need to hear it doesn't have to look perfect. It can be perfectly messy and be a better representation of what your students are learning than that perfect thing that you find on some teacher website or Pinterest or something like that. And so just being there to support the teachers and saying whatever you're doing is probably the right thing. So how can we build off what you're already doing? And so we focused in a lot on that science notebooking idea for that day. We really hit on back on this chart, and I think that most educators have probably seen or heard something like this, and just sharing with the staff that we learn 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, and so on. But if you get down to that we learn the 70% of what is discussed and written, and right there is where we can connect in those science notebooks. And so really making sure that we're not just reading about science, that we're not just talking about it out loud, that our students can get out a piece of paper, get out their notebook, and draw or write how they can make meaning of that new content. And then even going further to say that we learn 80 and even 90% of what we experience personally and can teach others. And that's the key right there. Prior to this professional development, I had given one that was specifically about a constructivist classroom. And so tying that learning into the PD that I had done on this day is that constructivist classroom. How can we, through science notebooking, through this new STEM Scopes resource, how can we create experiences in our classroom? And that's really what it's all about. How can you create an experience where your students can discover the learning on their own, where you're not just telling them and they're sitting and listening? How can you set up experiences for them to discover? And so I really made a big point to bring that back out today and just connect them back to that previous learning that they had already done. And then I went into discussing the science units, or they're in this resource, they're called scopes, discussing the scopes for the quarter. And so this example that you see here is an example for the kindergarten teachers throughout the district, and just showing them what they would be teaching. We got into the specific content, and then I helped them to figure out what resources they were going to need to pull and prepare to get ready to teach these successfully with their students. I ended the professional development with a science notebook walk, gallery walk. I wanted the teachers up and moving around, talking to each other and showing each other what they'd already done. And I think that that's really important. I think it's very powerful to see that you are doing good things already, and then your other teachers like you are doing things that are similar but different. And how can you learn from each other? How can you share what you're doing? And so, kind of how I touched on before, I think sometimes teachers just need to know you are doing the right thing. There's so many things out there that we're told to do this and this and this and this, and this is the new approach, that's old, this is in, that's out. And so sometimes you get confused of like what's the most important. And so I was really there during that professional development that day to say, hey, what you're doing is a good job. Take a look at it. What are you doing currently right now today? And then think of how you can extend that for you as a professional, but also for your students. What's one more thing that you can add in to make it just a little bit better? Um, that really moves me into my issues that I encountered. And I would say, number one, big issue with this resource, and it's a great resource. I love it, and most teachers do. But the resource is fully online, and so there's no teacher's manual. There's nothing sitting on the teacher's desk that they can look at, and so for a lot of teachers, that's really difficult because especially with something new, teachers want something to look at and kind of guide them through as they learn the new resource, and so getting everybody to be at a level where they are comfortable enough to teach something that's completely online is difficult. You have teachers that are at the level of not ready and able to find the resource itself and get logged in properly to teachers that are kind of not risk takers and don't want to just click around. They want to just be told exactly what to print off and exactly what to do. And so, kind of trying to mesh all of those comforts together and say, hey, just you're not going to break the resource. It is definitely okay. Just click around. You're not going to get lost. If you do, click out and start all the way over. And if you need my help, I'm here for that. And then I guess last but not least would be my realizations or discoveries for this professional development. And that would just be the buy-in, getting everybody to buy in. And that's not as easy as just saying buy in. It's great. You have to do the work to get them to believe it. So that was it. Thanks.